So here we are with Claudius. So Claudius was the uncle and successor of Caligula. So for sure he was a good administrator, and Rome prospered during the reign of Claudius. So he demonstrated efficiency by centralizing the government and then taking control of the treasury of the state and expanding a lot the civil service. So then he engaged a very vast program of public works, including new aqueducts, canals, and especially the development of Ostia as the port of Rome. So let's see. The Aqua Claudia, or Claudian aqueduct, was completed, so do you remember, started by Caligula and completed by Claudius. And this was one of the 11 aqueducts of the imperial city of Rome. We mentioned them, do you remember, as the Aqua Virgo, that it's now restored and it's feeding the fountain of Trevi. So this aqueduct, the Aqua Claudia, was remarkable for the quantity of water it was able to convey to the city of Rome, and was by far the grandest in point of architectural effect, because it presented for about 6 miles before it reached the city a continuous range of exceedingly lofty structure. So the arches in some places were 109 feet high. Then so the aqueducts in imperial Rome brought in water from mountain lakes and springs as far as 50-60 miles. And they could have a capacity of more than 300 million gallons per day. So this was the supply requested by the huge city of Rome, by the capital of the empire. So employing above ground archways such as this that you can see in the picture, the more than 700 engineers of the Imperial Water Service maintained a continuous slope from the water source to the gates of the city, and then relied on gravity and pump houses to drive the water throughout the city, even uphill. So then covered water channels were normally constructed of stone or brick and then coated with hydraulic cement and employed periodic salving basins to reduce water impurities. Then lead and terracotta piping was employed to direct water to location within the city. So in this way, the water was distributed all over the city, even to hilltops, and was poured continuously into the many public fountains, the baths, the latrines of public use. The privileged citizens had water brought to their residences too, again by lead pipes and with some pressure. So, as we said, Claudius reorganized and rationalized the empire, and especially the financial affairs of the state, setting aside a separate fund for the emperor's private and household expenses. Then almost all grain had to be imported in the city of Rome and in Italy, mainly from Africa and Egypt. So to encourage the importers and to build up stocks against winter months and times of famine, he offered to insure them against losses on the open sea. To make then unloading easier and to relieve congestion into the river, he carried out a project originally proposed by Julius Caesar and constructed the new port of Ostia on the coast. So the previous river harbor had several limitations. So, for example, large ships could not enter it because there was a sandbar in front of the mouth. Therefore, goods that arrived in large ships had to be transferred to smaller ships on the sea, and then shallow draw vessels could moor at the Tiber quays. But there was not enough capacity for Rome's growing needs here. That's why in 42 CE Claudius started the construction of an artificial harbor, a few kilometers to the north of the previous one. So a huge basin was created, partly dug out, protected by two curved moles, as you can see in the reconstruction, and with a lighthouse. A number of ships filled with concrete were used as foundation. So the new port was very wide and deep, but especially was 7 meters deep, so allowing larger ships to moor here. Then two channels connected the Tiber with the sea. There's one on the north of the new port, and this was meant for flood reliefs. Then the other channel was into the south, and it is known as Fossa Traiana, even if it was made by Claudius. The work of Claudius is mentioned in an inscription, which shows that Claudius also hoped with this to reduce the risk of inundation in Rome by digging these channels from the Tiber to the sea. The new harbor was called Portus Augusti Ostiensis. Then behind the harbor, slowly grew a city with commercial buildings and with residential areas, and this is witnessed by the finds of tombs. Then from the harbor, the goods were taken to Rome into barges, then that were taxed by oxen. Here we have his successor. So his name is Nero. So he was the son of Agrippina the Younger. So in the line of the Julio Claudian dynasty, but she engineered everything to establish her own son as the new emperor. So she made Claudius, that was his own uncle, marry her, and then she poisoned him. So securing for Nero the office of emperor. So becoming her the imperial wife, then so Claudius adopted Nero as his son. Then so shortly after, the only other possible contender, that was Claudius' son Britannicus, was dead, almost certainly poisoned. During the early year of his reign, Nero was kept into the hands of his tutors, the philosopher Seneca, and the commander of the imperial guards, Africanus Burrus, and for sure his own mother. So Nero tried many times to kill his mother, including the construction of a collapsible boat, but he was never able to finally kill her. So in 59 CE, he sent a man to her house who clubbed and stabbed her to death. So this for sure will mark Nero's life. Nero was seen as a very extravagant emperor, tyrant too, but especially his reputation was worsened when in 64 a fire ravaged Rome for 6 days, leaving only 4 of its 14 districts undamaged. So then Nero spent huge sums on rebuilding the city, but also a vast new imperial palace, the so-called Domus Aurea, or Golden House, a very huge luxury complex set in pleasure gardens, whose architectural forms were indeed very innovative and extravagant. So for sure this residence caught the eyes, and was called Golden House because parts of the rooms were overlaid with gold leaf and embedded with gems and rare seashells. And the construction was started on Nero's after the Great Fire of Rome. So some say that he allowed the fire to spread so he would have the land for this new magnificent structure. So even if maybe these are rumors, we do know that so many buildings burned cleared a large parcel of land where then the Domus Aurea was built by Nero. Nero was living before in the so-called Domus Transitoria, one of the buildings destroyed by the fire. So this was not an humble abode for sure, was a palace that was going from the Palatine and Esquiline hills. Transitoria means a passage. So, but then after the fire he built this newer and greater structure. So he began this after the fire and continued to enhance it until his death in 68 CE. So it too spanned in between several hills, again the Palatine, the Esquiline, but also occupied most of the Cilian hill as well, and even replaced the temple of the deified Claudius. So very little now remains of the Domus Aurea because later emperors replaced parts of the structure with their own buildings to conceal the memory of Nero. However, we have comments from authors and archaeological evidence to visualize the palace. So Nero used the best architects of the day. We know the names by Suetonius, so the historian writing the lives of the first emperors. The architects were called Severus and Celer. So Suetonius is describing in detail the structure, the Domus Aurea, saying that a huge statue of Nero, 120 feet high, stood in the entrance hall, and the pillared arcade ran for a whole mile. An enormous pool, more like a sea than a pool, was surrounded by buildings made to resemble cities and by a landscape garden consisting of plowed fields, vineyards, pastures, and woodlands. Here every variety of domestic and wild animal roamed about. Parts of the house were overlaid with gold and studded with precious stones and mother of pearl. All the dining rooms had ceilings of fretted ivory, the panels of which could slide back and let a rain of flowers or of perfume from hidden sprinklers fall on his guests. The main dining room was circular, and its roof revolved slowly day and night in time with the sky. Seawater or sulfur water was always on tap in the baths. So this is in the life of Nero by Suetonius. Then, so this things described by Suetonius disappeared, but archaeologists have uncovered an octagonal Rome that you can see in the picture on the right, with smaller rooms radiating from it. So from here we can see that the roof was a dome, so domes were adopted in residences too, in this case palaces, with a huge hole or oculus in the center to let in light. So This was a precedent of the idea then adopted in the Pantheon too. There were decorations everywhere, paintings, fountains, and elaborate furnishings. And Suetonius says again, when the palace had been decorated throughout in this lavish style, Nero dedicated it and condescended to remark, "Good, now I can at least begin to live like a human being." So this is the octagonal room discovered by the archaeologists with the oculus and possible reconstruction with all the decorations. You can see the floor is in mosaic. We have described floors decorated in mosaics with this technique called opus sectile. Different colored marbles put together in a puzzle as a mosaic to create geometrical patterns. Then, soon after Nero's death in 68, the palace and grounds that encompass a square mile were built over by successive buildings of successive rulers. For example, the Colosseum was built in the area, the baths of Titus, Trajan, and the Temple of Venus in Rome. So immediately by the followers of Nero and then by other emperors as Trajan and Hadrian, who built the Temple of Venus in Rome. Here you can see the red parts that are what is left of the Domus Aurea and the overlying baths of Titus and Trajan. So for many centuries the Domus Aurea seemed lost. Only in 1500s was rediscovered by Renaissance artists who lowered themselves with ropes into the dark and gloomy grottos that were the rooms of the Domus Aurea underground, to see all the delicate pictorial decorations which were from them called grotesque, because they discovered them in these grottos. They believed that were grottos, but were the rooms of the Domus Aurea. So that's why then this style that they imitated was defined grotesque. So, because Nero antagonized the upper class and had a tendency toward a kind of Oriental despotism, and he failed in keeping the loyalty of the troops, this all led to civil strife and opposition. So the Senate officially declared Nero a public enemy and sentenced him to death by flogging. Nero, though, at the end decided to kill himself with the help of his secretary, and this was in 68 CE. Okay, so this is the end for the Julio Claudian dynasty. Bye.